Unspoken Issues.
UltraForce Avengers Prelude, number 1. On sale August 17th, 1995. Title of the story, The Swords Are Drawn. Written by Terry Cavanaugh, penciled by John Statema, inked by Robin Riggs, Barbara Kahlberg, and Lawrence Q. Welch, lettered by Vicki Williams, and colored by Shannon Blanchard. Our story opens at the mysterious Dark Shop, a shadowy place with secret entrances scattered across the globe. Inside, two powerful women clash for the first and possibly the last time. Topaz, the warrior from another world, and Circe, the Eternal, displaced from her own reality. Their hated duel is interrupted when Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, is horrified to see the two women locked in combat and desperately seeks to break it up, shouting for them to stop. Topaz accuses Circe of murder, claiming she killed their hostess without hesitation. See last issue. Fueled by rage, she presses her attack, determined to make Circe pay for her treachery. The Black Knight steps between them, struggling to hold them apart, warning that the sounds of battle are growing closer with every second. Despite his pleas, the two women's fury only intensifies, each striking out with accusations and power. Dane removes his helmet, revealing his face, and begs Circe to look at him, hoping to reach her through the chaos. For a moment, his words break through. Circe's eyes widen with regret as she realizes what she's done, questioning herself in anguish. Dane steadies her while Topaz continues to seethe, calling Circe's act madness. Suddenly, Diane, the sorceress who appeared to have been killed by Circe, appears in the shadows, reminding them that this reunion should take place elsewhere, away from their comrades. But before they can move, the wall explodes inward with a deafening crash, and Prime, massive, muscular, and unstoppable, bursts onto the scene, his entrance leaving rubble in his wake. UltraForce then crashes into the fray, their members bursting into action against their monstrous attackers inside the chaotic stronghold. Prototype unleashes his weaponry with industrial strength, contrary maneuvers with their own agenda, and Hardcase battles ferociously. Ghoul and Siren lend their powers, while each fighter is introduced, emphasizing the diversity and drive of this unlikely team. Amidst the madness, Black Knight tries to make sense of it all, realizing the sheer force of UltraForce is not easily contained. Dane attempts to halt the brawl, shouting for everyone to stop, but Prime warns him, with warriors like these, they won't listen until someone truly gets their attention. Sure enough, Prime slams his fist into the ground with explosions shaking the walls. As the dust settles, Hardcase helps Contrary back to her feet, apologizing for being caught off guard by the strength of their foes. Meanwhile, Lady Diane, the enigmatic mistress of the Dark Shop, explains that the strange bar's regulars were merely her first line of defense, not the real threat. Tensions between Circe and Topaz flare again, as Dane struggles to keep them apart. The groups pause when Lady Diane urges calm, giving them a moment to regroup. Some members of UltraForce notice Circe's familiarity with Dane, calling him by name, which raises questions. Dane presses Circe for answers, how she got here, what happened in the rift, but she confesses she does not know, only that she's been terrified since arriving in this world. Suddenly, Diane reveals through her scrying pool that another presence has entered. Loki, the trickster god, crossing dimensions recklessly. Most shocking of all, he has found the Infinity Gems. Dane realizes if Loki has followed them here, then Loki may also be the key to guiding them home. The urgency is clear. They must locate Loki before he seizes the gems for himself. Circe rises, her power crackling with raw energy despite being diminished in this reality. She assures Lady Diane that though some of her natural might is lessened here, she has gained far more in return. With a wave of her hand, she obeys a dark command to sweep away their foes. But in the same breath, she turns her power to Diane herself. With cold detachment, Circe casts her supposed ally into fiery chains, declaring her of no further use. In a surreal shift, Circe finds herself within a strange inner void called the Soulscape, She gazes upon mirrored reflection of the heroes around her: Prime, Prototype, Hardcase, Contrary, Black Knight, and others, symbols of the world she now inhabits. She searches their images as if to anchor her identity among them, but then a haunting voice breaks the silence, congratulating her. Drawn toward a shadowy mirror, she is told her every action brings her closer to an unseen destiny. The mirror reveals a sinister figure, promising worlds within worlds and limitless power if she joins them. The dark entity speaks of becoming a god together, with only a few small sacrifices. The offer overwhelms Cersei as visions swirl around her. In desperation, she cries out and strikes back, shattering the mirrored images of her comrades. The glass explodes in shards, scattering the faces of both Avengers and UltraForce alike, as her scream echoes through the fractured soulscape. The scene now shifts to a strange, distant place, somewhere too far and sometime too soon. Enormous gems float in the void, one of them instantly recognized as the Power Gem. UltraForce members Prime and Prototype find themselves pulled toward it, confused about how they got there. Prototype lunges forward, eager to claim it, while Prime hangs back, noting the closer that they get, the more unstable the balance of power becomes. One grows stronger, while the other grows weaker. Prototype manages to steady Prime, catching him mid-fall before he crashes, and explains that with distance from the gem, things reset back to normal. But Prime insists it's his turn to grab the brass ring. Ignoring Prototype's warnings, he stretches toward the glowing stone, but the gem itself seems to manipulate the two heroes, offering limitless power to one at the cost of another. It enforces a kind of cosmic balance, ensuring only one can benefit while the other suffers. Deciding it's too dangerous, he turns his focus toward another target, the Mind Gem. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Topaz awakens from what feels like a nightmare. She finds herself lying in her own bed, dressed in her golden armor. Dazed and confused, she wonders if what she just experienced was real, or if she somehow has been thrust back into her own world, back into familiar surroundings that feel almost too perfect to be true. She wanders through the halls that look impossibly familiar, her old rooms filled with relics and trophies of her clan. She recognizes war treasures and the symbols of her people, realizing she stands once again in her house, her world, the glorious city of Windor. Tears well in her eyes as she whispers in disbelief that she is finally home. However, her joy falters when she notices a strange jewel in her possession, one she knows that is not hers. She identifies it as the Space Gem, powerful enough to transport her across galaxies back to even her birthplace, but at a terrible cost. She has been torn away from her allies in UltraForce. Even as she struggles with this revelation, events unfold elsewhere. In another place, the cunning god Loki greets Contrary, lounging on a throne of bone and shadow. He welcomes her to the new realm of Valhalla, the very heart of the God Wheel. Contrary recognizes him as the Lord of Lies, but Loki corrects her. He now claims dominion over all that has been and ever will be, thanks to his possession of the Reality Gem. With a sly grin, he flaunts the gem's power, calling himself the rightful Lord of Existence. Loki toys with Contrary, allowing her to gaze upon the gem, though warning her of the danger tied to Siren's fate, who is chained in the room as well. He praises Contrary's mortal ambition, suggesting he admires her disinterest in Siren's plight. Drawing closer, he tempts her with the promises of power and pleasures beyond measure, while she, unsettled but composed, warns him that he is not what he appears to be. Loki only smiles, declaring few truly are. Loki keeps Contrary close, indulging her questions as long as she entertains him. He boasts about scattering her comrades across the God Wheel, mocking them as thieves who dared challenge a god. Contrary presses him, asking if the others still live, and Loki admits they endure for now. He explains that should they survive the temptation of the gems, the real games will begin. He needs pawns strong enough for the grand conflicts to come. Contrary feigns interest, saying she is listening, while elsewhere, Siren secretly slips free from her restraints, wondering what her next move would be. At the farthest edge of the God Wheel, Where ruin and decay reign, Hardcase and Ghoul arrive in search of the Time Gem and the Soul Gem. The desolate landscape is littered with gravestones that bear unsettlingly familiar names. Suddenly, corpses claw their way out of the ground, old teammates twisted and reanimated. To Hardcase's horror, the exiles and the squad, friends he once fought beside. Ghoul realizes the gems are manipulating them, forcing them into battle against their own fallen allies. The heroes struggle, unable to strike at their friends turned monsters, while Ghoul tries to use his powers to manage the situation. The Time Gem soon comes within reach, glowing with ominous promise. Ghoul seizes it, while Hardcase, desperate and anguished, sees the Soul Gem fall into play. Memories of his own painful losses rush back, and he can only cry out in anguish. Not again! As familiar faces from his tragic past, friends and teammates he failed to save, seem to surround him once more. Ghoul, clutching the Time Gem, is overwhelmed by the vision of his lost love, Tinsel. To him, this is everything he ever wanted, a chance to hold her again, to confess the feelings he never shared while she lived. But the vision makes clear that the woman he knew is gone forever. Even the Soul Gem cannot restore what she willingly surrendered to the cycle of life. Instead, it only channels the pain of her body, not her soul. Yet Ghoul insists he can hear her voice, pleading with him to let her go, forcing him to face the truth he doesn't want to accept. Cersei drifts through shards of memory and broken realities. Her mind is battered, dark, and uncertain when she calls out for Dane. In a blaze of light, the Black Knight appears, stepping forward through a doorway. He reassures her gently. He is closer than she thinks, always with her, forever. His steady presence offers her an anchor in the storm of her own fractured mind. Dane physically supports Cersei, urging her to keep fighting against whatever force is consuming her. He promises his help, but admits he cannot do it alone. Meanwhile, Ghoul struggles with the burden of the Time Gem, declaring it dust in the wind. Hardcase faces his own torment with the Soul Gem, still haunted by its temptation. Hardcase then crushes the gem and reminds Ghoul that the true Infinity Gems are indestructible. These are constructs. Realizing that everything they've faced here are merely shadows, illusions meant to test them, he is left wrestling with the grim cost of these trials. Topaz stands in Gwendor, her homeland, every sense confirming its reality. Though she longs to stay, she vows to honor her people by returning someday, but not at the cost of abandoning her comrades. With resolve, she departs, reaffirming her loyalty to her allies. Meanwhile, Prototype and Prime come to a rare agreement. Deciding to act together, they launch the Mind Gem and Power Gem at each other simultaneously. The gems collide, unleashing a violent burst of power that sends shards of energy flying in every direction. Elsewhere, Black Knight urges Cersei to end the madness and take them all home. Holding a shard, Dane pleads for the nightmare to stop. Loki, however, mocks their struggle, holding the reality gem and gloating that Dane has no idea what he's up against. Watching, Contrary demands answers, but Loki only laughs, claiming to know everything, while dangling the promise of secrets and power before her. The tension builds as Loki boasts that all things must end, only for Siren to strike, surprising him. In the confusion, Siren exclaims she believes she's wrestled the reality gem away and brought everyone home. Yet her claim is immediately questioned when she realizes she never had the gem at all. And Cersei was the one who acted. As the heroes regroup, they realize Cersei is slipping away again, lost in the swirl of the gem's power. The issue closes with her adrift, consumed by the very forces they were trying to control, as our story points forward to Avengers UltraForce number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unspoken Issues Podcast. We are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Black September event that happened back in 1985, occurring between the Ultraverse and the Marvel Universe.
95.
What did I say? What did I say?
At 85.
85? Holy crap. No, 1995. Right here on the 80s Comics Podcast. Yeah, I think Crisis might be what we would have been talking about at that point. Yeah, so the Black September event, oh my goodness. There's a lot of people that have a lot of opinions about this event. Chris Armstrong is here to tell us what his was, and we're going to be talking about 3 issues: the UltraForce Avengers Prelude, Avengers UltraForce #1, and then UltraForce Avengers #1. So we are going to knock out 3 issues, running into what I believe after that is Black September, where we have the Black Infinity issues that pop up after that. Before I get into that, Chris Armstrong, I've got to get your thoughts here on Black September. Let's take it back to 1995. Were you picking this up?
Negatives. So this all happened in the midst of my hiatus, where I was not buying comics for about a year and a half. I remember when I started getting back into comics in mid to late 95. I remember telling a friend of mine who was a collector and going to the comic shop pretty much every week, this is right as I'm getting back into it. I didn't have a license yet, so I told him, look for Prime and some of the Ultraverse books that I like, and pick me up whatever the current books were. And when he brought them back the next day, it was like an issue of Prime and an issue of UltraForce. It was like the 4th or 5th issue of each.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think I could tell from a few issues, like, oh, there's only like 3 or 4 Ultraverse comics out now.
What happened?
But yeah, I didn't read the Black September or any of that stuff until years later, when I would follow those Prime and Ultraforce books as they limped towards their conclusions in their Marvel era. Didn't get to any of this stuff until years later, when I went back and started to build the full Ultraverse collection, probably about 12, 13 years ago now.
Okay. Well, yeah, as for myself, I collect pretty steadily up until the late 90s. 98 was when I got married. And once I got married, everything kind of took a big scaling back. I'm still getting some comics, but definitely wasn't collecting on the level I was for the years preceding that. So I probably saw this event like advertised or at least talked about in Wizard. I wasn't buying Wizard regularly, but I would try to pick up an issue here or there to stay up with what was going on in comics news. This is happening about my senior year. So I start my senior year in the fall of 95. I'm reading comics at this point. I probably am going to the same comic shop that I usually would. I might have seen some of these on the shelf and knew that something was going down, but I didn't feel the urge to pick this up. I was a mutant.
Yeah.
This, unless you're talking the New Exiles, which I think kind of,
Right.
I remember seeing Juggernaut on the cover going, whoa, what is going on here? But I wasn't into the Avengers. So a lot of these characters just didn't appeal to me. So I wasn't reading it at that point. Is this before Heroes Were Born? It is, isn't it? 96 is when.
Yeah, it would have been the year before.
So that's probably about the only time you're going to see me almost go like, oh, I should maybe pick up an Avengers issue. Still didn't, but regardless, I wasn't paying attention to the Avengers of this era. I definitely was not picking up any Ultraverse comics in any way. This was a universe that I knew the outskirts of, but didn't want to jump into, because sometimes you are a little bit intimidated if you haven't got in on the ground floor of some of these things. So, yeah, I mean, this is the 30th anniversary, and I thought I need to do something to familiarize myself with what happened in this event, because this is going to be the first time that I've read it.
The reason I think Malibu sold to Marvel is because they weren't making money anymore. So the industry was collapsing. Marvel, and I think you may have mentioned DC. DC was going to buy Malibu initially. Marvel got wind of that, and they were like, well, if DC buys them, they're going to have a bigger market share or whatever.
Right.
So Marvel kind of swooped in and bought it at the last minute. And Malibu, I think, was only selling because the industry was in a free fall. The industry just kept deteriorating, and it got to a point where Marvel was like, let's just jettison these books and concentrate on Spider-Man, Avengers, all this stuff. And then they've never gone back revisited. There is, like you said, there are people talk about like legal issues and stuff. I know at one point in some panel or something, this is going back probably 20 years ago, Joe Quesada was asked about it, and he said something about some dirty laundry he didn't want to air. It's why they don't use them. Tom Mason, who was one of the editors of the Ultraverse, worked at Malibu. He was maybe one of the first people in Malibu. He's in that group, but he's dispelled that pretty much.
Oh, did he?
You know, basically says the only, you know, there's issues of royalties where Malibu had unique royalty deals with all these Ultraverse creators and stuff, but he basically says like they're not really any different than what Marvel and DC have in their royalty programs. Like there's really nothing stopping Marvel from doing it except for the fact that there's not really a market for it. He doesn't know what Quesada means by dirty laundry, but maybe it should. I think my own idea of what he means by that is probably that somebody at Marvel doesn't like some of the people at Malibu and doesn't want them to get any royalties or notoriety. But I don't even know of anybody that has any decision-making power from back then as he's still at Marvel, you know?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's been a while.
Or just like nobody, there's a small group of fans of the Ultraverse stuff, but it's not big enough to make an impact financially for Marvel to invest in.
Right. All comes down to money. We could scream and cry that we want something, and it's a situation where they're like, well, is it going to make us money or is it going to make us a lot of money?
CrossGen as well, another similar, you know, comic book universe that they bought and was defunct for a while. They tried to bring it back and it was really unsuccessful. So maybe they think we've already tried this once. CrossGen, nobody cared.
Right. I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of love for these Ultraverse characters. You know, I shared the one photo of the Black September cover on the Unspoken Decade, and immediately, because the question was it prophetic? Will they destroy the Ultraverse?
Will they something the Ultraverse or destroyed? I forget what the first part of the tagline was.
Oh, well,
the answer is always, you know, they destroyed it.
Yep.
And, you know, I haven't read a ton of that Marvel Ultraverse stuff in years and years. Over the past 2 years or so, I've been slowly going through and reading all the Ultraverse stuff in chronological order. I'm just now getting to this era.
Interesting.
But my memory of it is like the strongest Ultraverse stuff was really in that first year. By the time the Marvel stuff came around, it was a lot weaker. Even before Marvel took over, some of the books were not as strong as they were early on. So who knows? It's really Marvel to blame. Tom Mason has made up the point in that Ultraverse group a lot. Like Marvel was pretty hands off. Like they were in charge. Obviously, they owned Malibu at that point, but pretty much let the Malibu creators do whatever they wanted. There's one exception that we'll talk about when we do the Black September issues. But for the most part, Mason doesn't have any complaints about Marvel meddling with what they were doing.
What's really strange is that when we look at this Prelude issue first, and I want to go ahead and share my screen real quick. Give me just a second here.
You know, interestingly, on the cover, it says Ultraverse Prelude, UltraForce Avengers,
right?
Number 1. This is the UltraForce number 11.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, if you look at the little writing with all the legal stuff.
Yeah.
It says UltraForce Avengers Prelude Volume 1, Number 11.
Wow.
So it's weird the way they have it designated, but like in the corner box, it says Countdown to Black September, Part 4 of 5, which is also interesting because the previous issues of UltraForce 9 and 10, or 8, 9, and 10 were parts 1, 2, and 3 or whatever. But this is 4 or 5, and there are actually 2 more parts to this. So it should be part 4 of 6, I guess. A lot of weird stuff going on in this cover.
Right. As we see here, just like you said, part 4 of 5. Right here on the cover, we have Cersei and the Black Knight kind of squaring off. I'll give you the floor first. Did you have notes that you wrote down compared to me, which I didn't write down?
Just a few things. Statema, however you say his name. I'm really torn on whether I like his art or not.
Really? I mean, I think it's pretty solid looking at this. What
the
turns
thing
you
is,
off?
Well, the layouts are very cool. I think it's very inspired by George Perez. Like it seems pretty similar to how detailed George Perez is with his stuff. Honestly, everything looks really good except for the faces. I really am distracted in almost every panel by how wonky the faces look. Maybe you don't have that issue, but he does he was on Prime for a while. He's done a lot of these Ultraverse books as I've gone through the last couple of years reading through all these, and that's something that always stands out. I do the layouts of the panels and pages. For the most part, all the art is good and pretty detailed and dynamic, except I just
can't get past the faces.
can't put to words exactly what it is I don't like about it.
Yeah.
But aside from that, talking about the art page early on, I think we're on page 9. He's got the image of Cersei screaming and all the glass shattering and stuff. And you can see it says Statema after Lee and Williams.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw this.
I was like, oh, I wonder if that's Jim Lee. And then I kind of looked at the figure and I was like, oh, that's Void from one of the early Wildcats issues, maybe 1 or 2.
Oh.
When that's her kind of in a similar situation where she's screaming. I think maybe she's having a vision or something. But yeah, we have to clear swipe or homage, I guess.
Homage. I mean, yeah, if he's given credit, we're calling that an homage.
Yeah, sure. Prime is a little too sharp, considering he's 13 years old and usually really out of his depth, but at one point, he's like some cosmic enforcer of conservation of energy laws.
Yeah, he does. Right.
Pretty clever of them to team. Terry Kavanaugh is the writer who I looked up because I recognized the name, but I didn't know from what. And he looks like in the 90s, he did a lot of Spider-Man stuff, X-Men. So I'm sure I've read a lot of stuff he's written. He teams Ghoul and Hardcase together, who in their not too distant past have had all their teammates die on them.
Yep.
They're haunted by those characters, which is kind of clever. That's really all I had as far as this one. I didn't think this was a particularly strong issue. Maybe it's because I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been reading this stuff, but it's been a few months. I've only recently decided to dive back into these books. And so I read this first part of this storyline probably 5 or 6 months ago. None of it was coming back to me. It's reading. So it's overly complex and I don't know.
Well, as you know, I was like, okay, where do I start? And what I thought would be a great place to start is part 1 of the countdown to Black September.
Yeah.
What I soon realized is there's a lot that happens before this that I really wanted to read.
It all starts with the Godwill stuff.
Yeah.
That's right when Marvel started taking a hand in things and Thor in that. And it just kind of spins into the countdown to Black September or whatever. So yeah, kind of like a rambling story.
My idea was that if I could have been a previous reader of Ultraverse comics, I probably would have known where to start. It sounds like this, and we'll find this out in the next story, but I think the best place to start really is the Rune Silver Surfer story, because I think that's what scatters the Infinity Gems in the Ultraverse. And then from there, in different issues of Ultraverse titles, like heroes or villains are coming across these gems, and somehow Loki is getting them from them. So we're kind of starting at a situation where Loki has the gems already. And now it's what happens in this issue. I understand it's a prelude, so probably we shouldn't get up in arms, but really it's not much of a story other than just, okay, Loki's got the gems. Here comes Cersei. What's her deal? She's here now. And Loki's going to mess with the UltraForce a little bit. They're going to have their own interactions with these gems. By the end of this thing, there's not much of a resolution, because our next issue is the Grandmaster versus Loki, and Loki has all the gems at that point. So it's not like all it is just kind of like our UltraForce characters having to go through some trial and then nothing happening at the end. Just them having to deal with some of the pain and anguish that they've gone through in the past. I mean, I don't really have a whole lot here either. Again, it's a prelude issue. I don't think there's a whole lot to it. And I as far as the art and the faces go, now that you've pointed it out to me, the faces might bug me just a little bit. I did want to talk about Contrary's costume, which apparently had brought up the ire of at least one letter writer in one of UltraForce's issues. I'd noticed that they were kind of upset with that. By the way, what do you think of this sword that Loki has that has the gems in it?
That's a pretty cool idea. Yeah,
I like that too. That's a pretty neat idea.
I'm not sure how much he gets to use it, but
he's not going to.
Instead of putting them all on a glove, he's putting them on his weapon.
There is an ad in this book for Marvel Interactive CD-ROM comic books. If you get a chance and check out the playlist, it's pretty neat. The Spider-Man issue is narrated by the guy that voices somebody from the animated series.
That's cool. Is it on YouTube, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, somebody snatched all of them. It has an introduction by Stan Lee. There might be some other introductions as well to some of the other issues, but I assume it's only these 4 that are on there. I didn't go watch all of them, but over 80 pages of authentic comic book action on CD-ROM. Yeah. I mean...
Malibu beat them to the punch on that, though, because they had... I don't know if they had voiceover. I think they did, but like Prime #1, maybe all the #1 titles from that for like Prime, Hardcase, and The Stranger. Maybe there were even a few others had CD-ROMs that I think you find on YouTube as well. That was pretty innovative,
Yeah, we're leaning into technology and using this. In 95, CD-ROMs were really coming into popularity. I gauge everything off my buddy Brad. He lived like, I don't know, a quarter mile away from me. I always go down to his house. He was the guy that had the computer. I learned most of my stuff about computers. Because he was the guy that had a 386 and soon a 486 after that, and CD-ROMs with sound blasters. And I was like, oh man, this is so cool. Well, I remember what a big deal it was to get a CD-ROM on the computer. It was just mind blowing.
Yeah, I'm looking at Prime #1 CD-ROMics.
CD-ROMics. Okay, that rings a bell. Yeah, that rings a bell.
You can get on eBay for $9.99 plus shipping.
Prime had his own Sega CD game
with an amazing soundtrack.
Yep, I've heard the soundtrack is really good. All right, well, there you go. That's our thoughts. Go ahead. Pick a panel.
Yeah, I got one. Page 5, panel 2, which is the panel where the big fight has broken out and Prime, to get everybody's attention, slams onto the ground and everybody kind of flies up in the cards.
Yeah, that is good stuff right there. Dane's trying to get everybody's attention and Prime's like, no, you got to do this. Hardcase's outfit. I guess I'm used to the early issues of Hardcase. Yeah. It's definitely changed.
Yeah, it's a little different. He's still got the shoulder pads, but they're not. It used to be like one big piece, but now it's two separate shoulder pads.
Right. And it looks different for sure.
He's got an H on his belt now.
Just in case you didn't know, Hardcase starts with an H. All right. Well, then I'm going to take the Void homage. That one, there's a couple pretty cool pages in here and panels, but I mean, when you have Cersei screaming and all these gems exploding, sending all of the members of UltraForce into different parts of wherever she's sending them to, it looks freaking cool.
Stay on the lookout for more Black September themed episodes all September long in 2025, right here on the Unspoken Issues Podcast.